Our last webinar from our TMI Simulation Solutions Maritime webinar series, in which we had the pleasure of discussing with experts in the maritime industry the future of shipping. The COVID-19 pandemic created new norms presenting new growth opportunities that allowed the fourth industrial revolution technologies to innovate through sensing, automation, robotics, and communication. We are very excited today and happy because this last webinar will have a great event to close our maritime webinar series. This is by offering you a private view of our latest product that I have next to me, our ship-to-shore crane simulator. Today, we are very proud to introduce the team that developed the STS Crane simulator and also that subject matter experts in training and operation in STS Cranes are accompanying us to discuss how this type of technology can aid operators to learn how to deal with critical situations in a safe environment, increase the effectiveness of the training, as well as offering a cost-effective, productive training solution. Now, I would like to introduce our speakers today. So, our first speaker is Mr. Edwin Briggeman. Edwin Briggeman established his company, Briggeman Material Handling Solutions, in 2019. That supplies parts to the container handling industry. Briggeman provides solutions for various industries with a broad range of best quality products, spare parts, industrial electronic services. So today, Mr. Briggeman is accompanying us to share his experience in the assembling and the testing of the crane, and as well as rolling equipment. Mr. Briggeman is the official dealer for Metagro in South Africa for operator seats and cabins. He is very interested in automation, and his company motto is understanding your business first. And personally, his motto is living a healthy and colorful life. Welcome, Mr. Edwin. Our second speaker, Mr. Ronald Page, has worked since 1987 as an operator until 1995. He has an extensive experience in containers and also as a training operator, as well as with cranes with lever. He became a trainer and has been since for almost 10 years a facilitator that is very keen and interested in the use of simulation for training, and especially the use of a crane simulator as a friendly equipment that allows the trainees to overcome the fear of using a real crane, as well as to reduce the wear and tear of the machine. His personal tagline is that he is a solution-driven trailer and facilitator. He believes in the encouragement and also the motivation of people. Welcome, Ronald.
Thank you.
Let me introduce our third speaker, Mr. Wouter Roos. He is the Operations Director at TMI Simulation Solutions. Wouter started as an intern for the company in 2006, as well as the aeronautical engineer that specialized in simulation systems architecture and the development of the systems. Wouter was a part of the small development team instrumental in creating TMI Simulation, an e-learning platform that today is recognized as world-class offering to aerospace, logistics, maritime, road, and rail transport systems. In 2010, he was part of the team to prototype and commercialize our interactive driver education system that offered a holistic simulation-based driver training program for learners, professionals, and advanced drivers. In 2015, he was a fundamental part to develop the logistics chain simulator and then the material handling equipment simulators for training port and terminal workers. Wouter's professional tagline is that he is a solution-driven engineer. Welcome, Wouter. And last but not least, Conrad Mönnig, who is also part of TMI. He is a mechanical engineer and also an innovative design engineer. Conrad's current goal is to design and manufacture quality simulators, and as well as to continuously strive to new innovations. Conrad has many years of experience in designing, developing, and manufacturing real-time simulators for the logistics and the maritime industries. Welcome, Conrad. Before we begin, I would like to request our audience in the venue, but as well as online, to share your questions as well as to congratulate our guests for such an exceptional career path. Please make sure that you share your contact details through our chat for more information of TMI, but also about our guest speakers. Now, I would like to move on with a small video that Wouter will explain, more or less and summarize the functionalities and how the simulator works. Over to you, Wouter.
Thank you very much, Marianne, for that introduction. And we will be showing a video of the simulator as we build it. Unfortunately, not everybody can be here to experience it in real life, but we'll do our best to show it and explain it as best as we can. So we can see here the simulator as it is. So we have obviously the seat for the crane operator and the screen set up around that. So what we've done is, and obviously we'll go into more detail in just a bit with the panel discussion, we've taken the seat of a real ship-to-shore crane and integrated that with our simulator. So we can see here in the video, there are some controls on the left and on the right. There's a joystick to move the crane forward, to move it sideways, to lift it up and down. And together with that, there's also a lot of buttons. So what we've done in the simulator, we've integrated all of the systems that there are, and we simulate them accurately. So all the responses to the inputs of the operator are accurately translated in movements of the actual simulated crane. So we can see here some of the operations in practice. You can see there's more options on this side as well. So there's a lot of subsystems in a crane like this, and we've all modeled them just so the operator can experience as it would be as sitting in the real crane. So here we can see the screen setup. So the ship-to-shore crane simulator, as we developed it, has 4 screens. We can see a center and a bottom screen. Those are 65-inch TVs. And then we have 55-inch side screens. And what we've done with this simulator as well to push the boundaries, we got 4 screens running in 4K resolution at 60 Hertz. So it's really the state-of-the-art technology that we push the boundaries with to get this many screens running, and we've actually managed to run it from a single computer. So that is quite an achievement, but it also keeps the cost, the operating cost, maintenance cost, and the capex cost quite low for this type of simulator. So we can see here as well some of the container movements. So the operator can pick up containers, move containers, and basically the real operations in there as well. And there's also training programs, which we'll discuss a little bit more in detail. It also offers the instructor an option to stand next to them, so you don't need to be in the real crane, and give direct instructions. And one of the nice things of a simulator is we can reset it at the press of a button. So if something doesn't go wrong, we can reset and try exactly that same situation again and see if the operator has learned and understood what's been explained to him. And then some of the dynamics, actually all of the dynamics we modeled accurately, but here specifically we can see the container swinging a lot. And that's one of the most important things for a crane operator, to understand the harmonics of the cables of the container, the weight of the container, and moving the cabin forward and backward at certain speeds. So the simulator is a very good tool to practice that stopping of the swinging, when to move forward, when to move backward, how to counteract those kind of movements. And we can see as well the whole vessel. So we've got literally thousands of individual containers that can be moved, and we use like what we call in the port a work queue that tells the operator which container needs to go to which position on the ship. So that's obviously very important for the operator to understand correctly as well. We don't want containers to be stowed in the wrong position. Then you get to the port, the next port, they don't know where that container is. So from the beginning, the simulator gives that opportunity to train the operator and to understand those kinds of instructions as well. And then all the controls that you see here on the simulator, we've integrated a whole seat, but we can integrate with any OEM or any seat that a certain port would want for training on that specific, or we can use this generic seat. So here, once again, we can see the swinging of the container. It's quite a lot of swinging. So here the instructor would guide the operator a little bit more on how to counteract this swinging motion. And that obviously is very important to accurately position your container in the vessel. So now we've seen the simulator, we've got a bit of understanding of what we developed, what we made, how it looks and how it works. I would like to once again introduce the panel that we have today. On my right, we got Edwin, and we got Ronald, and we got Conrad. And I would like to start, Edwin, with you. Maybe you can give a bit of a background of your involvement in the project and also your experience, because you've been also enjoying the simulator, I believe, today.
Yeah, happy to do so. We supplied the seat with all the controls. We are the official dealer for Metagro here in South Africa. So we're happy to participate in the project. It's lovely to see that you guys build a simulator that is like a state of the art, like you said, with your screens. I mean, you do it from a single computer. If I understood correctly, it's all like state of the art, and I think also the seat is a state of the art seat. I mean, it's an ergonomic seat as you would see in a lot of cranes. So it's good to have that seat in your simulator, because you want to simulate the crane environment as much as possible in your simulator. So I'm happy that you guys have chosen our seat. Thank you.
No, definitely. And I must admit, there's a lot of buttons on that seat, and that wasn't even the most difficult to figure out. It was mostly how to all the adjustments that are possible. It's amazing on that seat. That almost took longer to understand than the actual controls and the buttons from our side. Thank you for being here. Ronald, from your side, you've also been experiencing the simulator for the last 2 days.
Yes, thank you, Wouter, for that for this opportunity. I must say it's a friendly user, the simulator, and especially from my side, experience as an operator, as a facilitator, and working with people and working around that simulator. To stand around the guy is more space. You can work and you can talk with the people nicely, and you can show them directly on your right hand side, your hoist and lower, and on the left hand side you can show them. And the simulator is a friendly user. I must say, well done, and it is very, very, very expensive, but it's a good machine in this new era that we are living in.
Yeah, thank you for those nice comments. I appreciate that. Conrad, maybe you want to add something more on the design. How did we start this design? How did we come up with it, and why did we do the way we did things?
Yeah, so we started off with the LSC simulator, Logistics Supply Chain Simulator, and we realized there's a good opportunity and need for a ship-to-shore crane simulator. Then we started doing a bit of research into how do we go about creating this simulator. Eventually, we came across the need for a very accurate and good cabin, the environment that the operator needs to sit in, and then we came to Mr. Briggeman and his company, and we made a good deal with them for our good seat that we have here, the Metagro seat we have here, which is really a good ergonomic seat. There's a lot of adjustments, a lot of features to it, and it really helps make it's the crux of the simulator, in my opinion. Everything's built around it, and it makes it a really good feel. It feels like you're in a real crane. Then we developed from there everything around it. We went and put larger screens, about to mention 265 inches, and then a 55 on the sides. That just gives you a really good wide view, as well as a good all the way from the top of your boom all the way down straight directly below you to your containers that you operate above. You really get with that, you get a good view of your depth perception is very good, which is also very important.
Yes,
you know that also from Ronald's side. You mentioned a lot. It's good to know that you can understand just how high you are and the operating difficulties of that. I think that it really gives a good feel in terms of that. We worked on a lot of work, spent a lot of time with OM people to just help us get a very accurate simulation going. Very good simulators. Like we're seeing how important the swing is in terms of understanding that how relevant that is in operating these cranes and how to counteract that and work with that so far.
Thank you, Conrad. So as Conrad mentioned, the logistics supply chain simulator is what started the crane simulator, and I'd like to mention as well, we develop all our simulators basically from scratch at TMI, and it uses the same core software as a logistics supply chain simulator. So what that allows us to do is to connect the two simulators together. So for instance, we could have somebody in the logistics supply chain simulator planning, creating work queues, and then that's being sent in real time to the crane simulator, where the operator gets those work queues instructions basically on what containers to move where. And then in the logistics supply chain simulator, it gets updated as well. So you can see how it is with a operator in the loop, basically how that influences your timings, for instance, and we'll go into a little bit more detail on that, on the performance of the operator. So that whole feedback between that interaction between these role players is something we can do, and that's something that makes the simulator unique. And we can even take it one step further, where we're also developing at the moment other lifting equipment, like your reach stackers, your forklift, and they can all integrate and play in the same real-time virtual world. So if somebody can drive a truck simulator, for instance, and drop a container off underneath the crane, or a straddle simulator can pick up another container. So what we're doing is we are developing a whole ecosystem of port simulators that are all interconnected and work together. And I think that's a very good opportunity we're creating. One thing I didn't mention, we have the simulator here standing in the room next to us, but it's actually a containerized solution that is very easy to move from port to port. It's a complete self-sufficient unit. It only needs power. Single phase is enough, so it can basically run anywhere where you move it to, and we can do the training there. We can move obviously the trainers quite easily. So that's another very good benefit of this system. To move into a little bit more on the training side, we've obviously implemented different lessons and different measurements. But Ronald, maybe you can talk a little bit more about how the lessons and how your experience with simulators and training is.
My experience with the training is very simple. For the operator to start off with a new simulator, it's helpful for them. And what I like also is the safety part of the simulator, because when you move to the front, your trolley comes to a creeping speed before it goes to the front, and even when you're at the lower, and then also your spreader comes to the creeping speed, and it helps for the operator to see that before he can even damage the container, that the spreader goes on a creeping speed. And that's something good that is on the simulator itself. And from my side, when I look at it and I just time it for a new operator, timing 3 to 5 minutes it will take them to understand the new simulator. And I'm really hands-on for this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Ronald. I must admit, you trained us a little bit yesterday and today as well. And I can't believe how much easier now it is for me to put a container in. I can almost apply for a job at the port, I think. But it makes a big difference. And then obviously that is one of the big benefits of using simulators. It's a completely safe environment.
Yes.
It also helps with the confidence of the learner themselves. They feel they can experience. They're not afraid to make these mistakes, and that's obviously it's very important, especially when you're working with equipment as big as a ship-to-shore crane simulator. It's very difficult to do training on the actual equipment, and not just for the time, but also you risk the wear and tear and damaging the equipment. And I think, Edwin, with your experience, you can maybe explain a little bit more about the importance of that.
Yeah, maybe to take it to a step back. I mean, it's even more important from an operational point of view that the operator is trained professionally and properly in advance, because you got this ship-to-shore crane that maybe is like 300 million rand a piece. You can't just let somebody go work with it and not qualified, not properly trained. I mean, it's insane if you do that. And you also have to look at this crane needs to do its job. It needs to produce. It needs certain moves per hour. So you can't train on the job. It's too expensive equipment. It needs to perform. I mean, there's only so many ship-to-shore cranes on a key site that you can use. You can't just have one spare and put it on the site and say, okay, we start training with this one. So it's very important that you've got people skilled, trained properly on a simulator. So that's key. Then step after that is that once you have trained the person properly and it starts using the equipment properly, then you save cost in your maintenance. You don't get damages because they know how to handle the machine properly. They know how to lower, and most of the times, the biggest, I would say, the biggest breakdowns happen when the spreader gets stuck on the ship.
Yes, yeah.
It happens on the ship. It's in the ship. It goes into the cells where the containers fit in. The spreader gets stuck. They try to yank it out once, twice, 3 times, and then it's stuck and it breaks down. Cables break, or the spreader itself is broken. You have to get a maintenance team in. Costs money, but it's also downtime. The ship can't wait to get out of the harbor in time. It's waiting time in the harbor or outside the harbor is probably $50,000 a day or so. It's cost. So just to lie there and wait for to be offloaded again. Yeah. So reduce your maintenance costs, reduce your downtime. That will help your port to perform with this high expensive equipment. It's an absolute necessity, and I'm happy that there is now a crane simulator built in South Africa. I mean, we've got it now locally available, so that's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, and those are 2 very important points that we both focus on with the training in the simulator. It's the downtime, obviously the prevention, and the maintenance as well. So one of the things we've implemented is, as you mentioned, it's the forces on the spreader, putting it down too hard or yanking it when it's stuck in the vessel. I must admit it happened to me a few times as well. I mean, you're right. The first reaction is I want to get it out of there, rather than actually taking a step back and thinking about what's happening. So the nice thing with the simulator is it monitors those kind of things. The forces obviously are known on the cables, on the spreader. So we record all those kinds of all that information, and we present it into a report as well. So during the training, especially with beginners, they make more mistakes obviously, and as they go through the training, you can see that progress. You can see that measurement. Like the operation will be smoother. There's less stresses on the cables, less stresses on the container. So all those kinds of things are automatically monitored in the simulator, and those sometimes can be quite hard to quantify in real life when you're sitting far away from it. What is too hard, what is not. So you can do it. Yeah, you obviously with experience, like a trainer like Ronald, you'll know that. But what you can't give that feedback to the student, and the simulator can do that. One of the other things with the simulator is you can give like little helping pointers that you can't do in real life. So for instance, for a novice student, what we can do is we can put a virtual camera, as we call it, next to the spreader, so they can see how far the container is still above the ground when they're dropping it down, because that's one of the most difficult things to judge your depth. And obviously you want to go fast, because you don't want to take too much time, but you also need to drop it softly. So that is very important. So like a camera view on the side could help at the beginning to give an understanding to the student of how far you are above the ground. Another virtual aid that we implemented in the simulator, for instance, is that we develop now is the center line. How do you align your crane with the center line just to minimize the crane movement? So that's very important. And in the simulator, we can show a virtual line, for instance, and it shows to the student where to align the crane with. And then in real life, they know, oh yes, that's important to look out for. So these are kind of things that we implement in the simulator that you can't do in real life. And then on the performance measurements, maybe Ronald, you can explain a little bit more how you do that in the actual crane.
On the actual crane, what I do, I make use of a stopwatch, and I time the person, the operator, at the moment he start picking up the container and move over to the vessel, put the container on the vessel into the cell, bring it up, and I give him the correct time and say, listen here, we can speed up with some time more or whatever, just to help him. And from my side, experience side, and I must say, just this morning, and even when we done a test, I see, hey, these guys is excellent with this new simulator.
Yeah. So in our simulator, we're replacing your old-fashioned stopwatch, and it's all automated. So you get the times from moving the spreader to the container, locking the container, moving the container to the vessel, and lowering it. So you get all these little times in between. So you don't get a single time. And the nice thing as well with the simulator is it stores all that information. And then at the end, it shows you the progress as well. So you'll see the first time it took 15 minutes to move one container. After day 2, it was 5 minutes. And you can see that progress. And you can see when the student is not progressing enough, what are they struggling with? And that's a very helpful tool in the simulator to get all that information. We collect that, but we also present it to the trainer to understand it and to know what to focus on. That's always another benefit of the simulator. Maybe Conrad, you can tell us a little bit more about the accuracy, the dynamics, and how we modeled that and how we.
Yeah, we've spoken quite a bit about it, but I think it was really pay attention to how much time and we spent on getting this thing, this crane actually very accurate. We spent a lot of time on working on lifting, hoisting and lowering speeds, some of the forward backward motions, all those speeds, weights of the cranes, of the container, of the spreader. We did a lot of work in terms of the actual cables that we're using, that affects how much everything how a container swings around. And we've actually also worked a lot on how it interacts with, let's say, some of the weather conditions and so on. For instance, we know obviously at a port, you can get quite a lot of a wind impact on your containers, and so that's additional swaying that you get from it comes from something that's not in the crane itself. You know, how do you counteract that? You know, light winds is okay. At some point you need to actually stop. You cannot operate at some point, but you know, some of the intermediate speed winds, you know, how do you handle that while you're operating your crane? And you've got a ship swaying perhaps from some of the currents in your port. You do all of that in the simulator, and how you can learn how to handle the basics far before you get into the simulator, into the real crane.
Yeah. So as Conrad mentioned, on the cables, we did actually a lot of research and modeling in it, and to get that accurate, because obviously that's the most important thing of your crane, to get that swinging, not just the frequency of the swinging, but also the extension of the cables, the flexibility, because they're steel cables, but with the weight we're hanging on them, with the spreader and the container, we're talking about 60, 70, 80 tons. There's a lot of flex happening, and you need to accurately simulate all those little effects in order to add up to a realistic simulator. So we spend a lot of time on that, as well as having literally thousands of containers simulated at the same time. So that's also what we spend a lot of our time on, but to get that accurately working. We're quite proud of that, to be honest.
Yeah.
And as Conrad mentioned as well with the weather, that's obviously one of the nicest things of a simulator. You can do the training at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, but I can make it in the middle of the night. I can make it rain. I can make it, the wind conditions can change. And that's something, okay, mostly ports, they have a lot of different weather conditions, but sometimes when you're training, you can't wait for that. Maybe Ronald, your experience with those kind of conditions in simulators versus real life. Obviously, when you're sitting in real life, I can imagine if the wind is blowing, I think you mentioned up to 70, 80 kilometers.
80, 75.
Sitting up there, 80, it will be different. But
yeah, it's different, 85. But on the simulator, when the wind like that, it helps the operator to the learner to touch his, catch up his swings and stuff.
No, absolutely. And then other little things we picked up with discussions with you, like the sound. Yeah, those kind of things to make it feel like you're sitting up 60 meters above the ground when it's windy, and then what's happening around you. So these are all the important things we're looking at. And obviously we're still developing the simulator further. So this is basically the starting point of where we are, and we want to make it more lessons, more weather conditions, all these kinds of different cranes that we want to develop. So other things we do as well, different containers. So you got what's called 20-foot, 40-foot tandems. Those are the important things as well. How does when to change, how to change, and how to plan those kinds of movements as well. And then we even go up to out of gauge, over height containers, for instance, with change. So it's an all-round simulator that we've developed for basically any ship-to-shore crane operator.
I think we can also, go to, you mention different kinds of containers, but I mean, you've got operating, how do you handle a reefer slightly different, possibly, or maybe an IMDG. How do you handle dangerous goods when you're operating it on a crane? Maybe there's different ways to handle all of that, and you can learn the processes behind that too.
No, definitely, and after discussing with Ronald yesterday, the safety aspect as well, we want to entrench that from the beginning. So it's not like, okay, I'll press a button and you pick up the container. You first need to take a step back, inspect your crane, make sure all the safety measures are in place. So we entrench that from the beginning in the training, that safety is a very important part. So you need to check, are your fire extinguishers there, are the stops working, emergency brakes, all those kinds of things, all those systems we model as well. And it's important to start the training. I believe you would agree with me on that, Ronald.
Yes, I definitely agree with you.
Yeah. I would even think that if you even got seasoned operators, you want to send them back for training, because then they can still learn more. Or even though they move a lot of containers, they may make a lot of damages. Yeah. So then you send them back, and as you say, you monitor all their movements and the impact of the spreader on the containers. So then they can actually learn and see where things can be improved. So you can even go to higher operating speeds, more moves per hour, and less maintenance. So I think it's not only a simulator for new people to learn, but it's even for the experienced ones to see what they're actually doing and to learn from that and even improve their performance.
That's a very good. No, that's a very good point, and I know it from personal experience with our driving simulators.
Yeah.
But you'll be surprised the bad habits you pick up over time if there's nobody telling you.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't know, or sometimes it becomes laziness. I think Ronald, you might be able to give an example of that.
You might have some experience there.
Where people, after you do something for 10 years, you might not do exactly what you were taught to do.
Yeah.
And that's where the simulator can play an important role, to pick up those little mistakes and tell them. Doesn't have to retrain them per se, but just to refresh their, like something to remind them again, like, oh yes, I forgot about that, or I shouldn't, or I can do this differently. And I think the cranes evolve over time as well.
Yeah.
I think you have a lot of experience with the components. Maybe you can also tell us where it's heading to.
Yeah, of course, you see the technology advances, so the cranes get more modern, the speeds have increased so much, the hoisting speeds, the trolley speeds, they have increased so much. So to keep ahead of that and be able to handle those speeds, you probably need to, if you go from Volkswagen to Mercedes, you probably need to train a little bit.
Yes,
in that way.
Absolutely. So, I was actually shocked when we looked at the data and we put the actual speeds in, how fast it was. Yeah. But it's also, I think, a reaction to the ships and the vessels getting bigger.
Yeah.
Because if you want to still do the same 20, maybe from 30 moves per hour, but your vessel is now, the width of the vessel would be twice as much. It can't take you twice as long. So there's a lot of extra traveling to do. So you need to go faster.
Yeah.
Ronald, your experience with training, how do the operators react to those changes?
The changes in the beginning, they find it that a bit difficult, but afterwards they see, no, it's easy, it's nice to work, and then I give them at least a week or two to get more used to it, to simulate that. But from my experience, we do get some of them who's trying to think they know a lot, but sometimes they don't know a lot.
Those are the worst. Yes.
Yeah.
The people who think they know, and that's obviously where the simulator plays an important role. Say you're changing the cranes in your port, or something changes in the speed. They can experience that first in the simulator, and then experience on the real cranes. Once again, it comes down to downtime and operational time of the actual cranes, which is obviously very important. And that's where the simulator plays an important role in training. Yeah.
Thank you.
So we actually, as we said, we're very proud of the simulator. As we said, it's the starting point of something where we work closer together, where we get trainers involved to develop the training programs and work from there.
Okay, I have one question from the audience about the deployment of the containers to ports around the world. They're asking about the training programs.
So we develop a complete training program, which starts actually before the simulator with the theory part of it, which takes, depending on the prior knowledge of the people, roughly 5 days, like the full-time training. So it's aligned to the South African standards with TITA, and we developed our own content for that. So that is can either be a manual or e-learning based. We offer both options.
Yes.
Maybe Ronald, you've been to the content. Can you give us a quick overview of the topics covered?
The introduction is that we start with a day, and then from there we can work up to 4 days. And then from then onwards, then we will go over to the simulator to start with the training.
Yes, so we don't just start them off in the simulator. We start with the
introduction. We do the theory on in the book, and then the last day we do assessment just to see if they do understand what we were talking about.
Yeah, so there's a lot of theory about the loading, but also about the safety.
Yeah,
and then in the simulator, we have a 1 week course, I believe.
That's good.
2 to 3 days for the beginners, and then we have the more advanced, like you using your work shoes. So they, as we mentioned, they start first with just basically moving one container at a time, and just get the feel for the whole container, making sure you're in control, you can control the swing, and then you build upon that. So that's typically a week where there's an assessment at the end, and the instructor and the simulator itself will generate a report, and from there on they either be ready or they need a little bit more retraining to go into the actual crane.
That's correct. Yes.
So as we mentioned, it's a containerized solution which can be sent to port. We can service smaller ports as well. It's a small container, and we can take, depending on the training program, if we have 4 weeks of students, we can come visit the port or more, obviously, as well. So we offer that training as from now.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. And any takeaways for the end of the session?
Well, what I can take away from this is like what I like about your simulator the most is that you kind of, I would almost say, you think about everything about the environment. So you look carefully at the seat. That is like a real live seat. It's not just you put a chair there with some controllers, but it's like an operator seat, a true crane operator seat you put in. Yeah. Plus that you mimic the weather environment, you mimic the ship environment, the crane environment. So to me, it's like very versatile simulator, because you can basically program any type of crane, any brand of crane, with their speeds, parameters, whatever they've got, that you can. So it's like it suits. You can make it suitable to every terminal and to every crane they have or they may want to buy. That's my takeaway. It's very versatile. It's very, very thought of. It's complete. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you. Ronald?
My side is a friendly user, and I would say from my this is a new era. This is a way to go.
Thank you. Conrad, from your side?
I think, like we said, it's a very holistic approach to the whole simulator environment, and also Ronald mentioned many times, there's that opportunity to install all that safety training way before he even climbed into any crane, I think, and the understanding of how do you mitigate a lot of your downtimes and maintenance costs and so on. I think that's where the true value of it all comes in.
No, thank you very much, and I fully agree with those comments, obviously, and I also think it's a very exceptional value for money simulator that we've created. The quality of it is excellent, the dynamics, everything, the lessons, and it's a very affordable solution for training. And, I'd like to thank you very much for joining me today for the panel, and I would like to hand over back to Marianne.
Well, thank you so much, guys. Thank you to our experts today for sharing your experience and all the knowledge with our audience, but as well with the team. You have been a fundamental part in the process of developing these maritime webinars for the maritime industry. We are extremely happy for closing this session, but also for concluding our maritime webinar series, where we have learned from our colleagues in the maritime industry about the power of digitalization and how to unlock its potential to reach greener, smarter, and resilient ports. Please stay with us and stay in touch for us to share our catalog of products, which includes, of course, the main features of our products and benefits of using simulation products. We will also share the contacts from Mr. Briggeman and Mr. Page, of course, if you would like to contact them. And it has been a great honor to work and network with change makers and innovators. On behalf of the TMI team that has been behind the cameras and our guest speakers, thank you so much for joining the webinar series, and we hope we see you soon again. Bye-bye.